Originally released in 2004, it's hard to argue that the Saw franchise hasn't had a massive impact on the horror genre as a whole. The falling legs and guts it dropped as it soared to box office success paved the way for a new era of gore, and a style of scares that's impact can still be felt today. However, this franchise of tricycle riding puppets and intense chiropratic therapy wouldn't exist without the game masters pulling the strings and crafting the elaborate, thought-provoking escape rooms, which definitely would not pass safety codes. For example, I think there might be some mold that needs to get taken care of. So today we're going to be looking into these cruel inventors and accomplices, and ranking them by how evil and twisted they really are. Hello horror fans, my name is Spookful, and let's get into this analysis of evil. Now before we get into the ranking, I just want to quickly clarify that for simplicity's sake, we aren't going to be considering the actions of the trapped victims, and only look at how cruel the masterminds behind them are. This is just to help iron out the inconsistencies between what actually qualifies you to be placed into a trap. And with that out of the way, grab your hacksaws and 5 retro TVs for a prime viewing experience, and let's get into the ranking of our irredeemable inventors.
Dude, we're getting the band back together!
Starting us off in number 7, we have the Barney to Kramer's Clyde, Jill Tuck. The most saint-like among our gross murder house pool of sinners, you may be surprised by her inclusion. But when you take a look at her actions throughout the franchise, and the Saw Wiki, she has in ways aided Kramer's and Hoffman's careers as master trappers. Despite being opposed and disgusted by John's games, she didn't speak to the police despite numerous other patients falling victim to them, and by giving Hoffman the pictures of the next victims, thereby basically stamping the words approved on their death warrants. However, Jill never killed anyone with her own hands and was regularly described as kind-hearted in a career of drug addict rehabilitation, which is admirable. But whilst Jill always tried to play nice, she couldn't tuck the skeletons of her husband's past in her closet, and aided the evil engineers further up this list in minor ways, landing her last place in our tally of evil. Next we move on to number 6, and on to Mr. Lawrence Gordon.
I'm a doctor.
Oh, sorry. Dr. Lawrence Gordon. One of the first victims turned accomplice. This corrupt Hawkins mayor had his life saved by Mr. Kramer himself, and due to this played the role of doctor throughout John's career, performing the surgeries needed for John's traps to work. He also played the role of John's last vengeance, when at the end of the original films, he and his pig-masked friends huffed and puffed and blew Hoffman's jigsaw killer empire down to the ground, and locked him away in the very bathroom where Gordon's accomplice had first began. Taking a large step up from our previous helper, Gordon was on the front line of John's self-described war against people not respecting their lives enough, and therefore has lots of blood on his scalpel-wielding hands, landing him his place at number 6 on this list. Next we bounce back to the film with arguably the most controversial reputation among fans, being 2017's Jigsaw, where our 5th place killer, Logan Nelson, made a name for himself. Now we get into the killers who organise their own games themselves, and therefore prepare for a sharp turn-up in the evilness category. Following Logan being too much of a sleepyhead and sleeping too tight and not letting the bedbugs bite, John decided it would be unfair for him to die like that, and took him on board as his first brutal Bloody Place workbud, where they worked together creating the iconic traps of the franchise. This creation and appeared enjoyment in creating these murderous fashion pieces already put some points in his immoral tally. However, Logan then also constructs his own game 10 years later, where he recreates his first game for a little trip down nostalgia road with some fresh victims. However, having only conducted one game in his career with 4 victims, he has a relatively low body count for a jigsaw killer, and that lands himself in 5th place on our list, despite his evil tendencies. Do you have anything to add, Logan?
I speak for the dead.
Okay, cool, I guess. I don't know why, he just says that sometimes, I don't really know what he means. Let's move on to lucky number 4, where we stay in the region of random one-off attachments in the Saw franchise, for Spiral from the Book of Saws, William Emmerson. In this film, which is a passion project by Marty the Zebra from Madagascar, William embarks on a copycat culling of the city's police department, and orchestrates some of the most brutal traps in the franchise. Examples being giving a person a very thick face mask for their skincare routine, and the other a very intense back scratching machine. I went back and forth like a bladed pendulum between whether Logan or William should be higher, and eventually landed on William, as he not only sits atop a larger pile of dismembered bodies, but also acted independently and as a lone wolf. Despite his attempts to recruit the person whose dad he had just killed, I don't know, the end of his plan seems to confuse me. His games did seem pretty inescapable and show off lots of yucky bloods and guts, so that lands him just off to the side of our podium in our brutal gauntlet of jigsawers, if that's even a word. Our bronze medal, or more appropriate to the franchise, rusty iron chain with some random guy's middle toe on it, we have the OG accomplice, Amanda Young. Well, technically not the OG because it's revealed like 2 other people were at least helping all along, but that probably wasn't the intention when they first made the film and she was the first on-screen appearance of an accomplice, so I don't know, this franchise's continuity is a headache. Anyway, yeah, so Amanda, the original creator of the unescapable game. Well, I think Hoffman did it first. Nope, I'm not doing that again. The first person whose inescapable traps was shown on screen. Amanda is yet another ex-trap victim turned John Kramer's best bud, who earns her spot at 3 by setting up many traps designed to simply execute people with no possible chance of escape. I'm in some ways reluctant to place her this high, as she has had a very tragic past, but we still can see moments of enjoyment and a large lack of remorse throughout her on-screen appearance. She abuses Lynn in Saw 3, and sentenced practically all her victims to death. Despite her intense dental experience with John, she joins his force of cloaked swine-headed minions, and got consistently reprimanded by John for her creating inescapable games. That no matter how lucky the participants were, their fate was sealed the second they got unconsciously dragged in there. Number 2 goes to the legendary charismatic murderer.
I've never murdered anyone in my life. The decisions are up to them.
Sorry, trapper, John Kramer. The original still holds strong, holding a place at the top of the leaderboard, despite being the original and starting at all. Whilst he never does rig traps unlike his friends in 1st and 3rd place, and demands that he is of good morals, John Kramer is undoubtedly twisted and evil. He has a tragic backstory indeed, but the look of enjoyment and passion he puts into his game speaks volumes for his true malice. No one is safe from Tobin Bell's pig mask jump scares, and he will always be the face of the Saw franchise. Being the mascot aside, however, John doesn't quite take the crown for most evil in the Scream franchise, as instead we present that award to the detective turned masked murderer, Mark Hoffman. The Hoffmanator is by far the most evil of all Saw killers, from his blatant murder of anyone who gets in his way, to the pure amount of victims he claims in his traps, to him literally storming a police station and somehow wiping out everybody inside. The Saw franchise's apex predator takes no victims. He boasts the longest run out of all their main killers and sits tall upon his throne of varied skulls. His games always stand out as some of the most twisted in the franchise, and his legacy as Saw's most evil killer will almost certainly never be topped. So yeah. That's my opinion on how all the Jigsaw killers would be ranked from least to most evil. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're into killer motives, my motive analysis of Stu Marker is on screen now, or if you want some more Mark Hoffman level action, then my horror battle between Patrick Bateman and Ghostface is also up now. Apart from that, thank you very much for watching, and until next time.
Game over.